My friends, let me share something with you that most people never hear in their entire lives, not in school, not in the workplace, not even at home. And yet it's one of the most important truths you'll ever learn. You see, people talk about motivation. They talk about discipline. They talk about trying harder, pushing harder, doing more. But very few ever talk about the real reason some people create extraordinary lives while others drift year after year. And the reason is simple: consistency. But not the kind of consistency you hear in motivational slogans. No, this is something deeper, something quieter, something far more powerful. It's what I call the truth behind consistency, the truth nobody ever told you. You see, consistency isn't magic. It's not a talent. It's not even about being strong-willed or gifted or lucky. Consistency flows from something much simpler and far more predictable. It flows from what I call the law of accumulation. Now, that's a law worth studying, because this law determines your future, whether you study it or not. The law says that everything you do accumulates. Every small act, every small choice, every habit, good or bad, stacks up over time. Nothing is lost. Nothing disappears. Nothing goes unrecorded. It all counts toward the final total of your life. Some people think life changes in a moment. And yes, sometimes there are moments that wake us up, moments that give us clarity, moments that shake us. But life itself, your character, your income, your health, your relationships, those things don't change in a moment. They change when your habits change, and habits change when your daily ledger changes. And that, my friends, is the truth nobody told you. If you want to improve your life, don't start with massive goals. Don't start with big promises. Start by understanding this simple fact: your future is hiding in your daily accumulations. What you do a little of consistently becomes your destiny. And what you neglect a little of consistently becomes your burden. It's not the dramatic choices that shape us. It's the small ones repeated. So today, let's begin a deep dive into this law, how it works, how it shapes every result you see, and how you can use it to build the future you truly want. Because once you understand this truth, once you see how accumulation governs everything, you'll never look at a day of your life the same way again. Now let's talk about this remarkable principle, the law of accumulation. If you truly grasp this law, my friends, you'll understand why some people seem to get ahead almost effortlessly, while others wonder why each year looks exactly like the last. And the reason is this: everything accumulates. Everything. Every small effort, every small neglect, every small step forward, and every step backward. Life is always adding it up. See, most people think progress is dramatic, big breakthroughs, massive changes, sudden transformations. But life doesn't work that way. Life works like a savings account. You save a little today, a little tomorrow, and at first it feels like nothing is happening. And you say, well, Jim, I've been saving for a whole week. Where's the fortune? But that's not how the law works. At the beginning, it's slow, quiet, unimpressive. But then, then the magic begins. A little more, and a little more, until one day, you look up, and the numbers have taken on a life of their own. And that's how your habits work. That's how your character works. That's how your skills work. You read 10 pages today, 10 pages tomorrow, and at first you think, what difference does that make? But 5 years from now, you're a different person because knowledge accumulates. You walk for 20 minutes today, 20 minutes tomorrow, and at first you say, I can't even see the change yet. But stay with it. Health accumulates. You speak kindly to your spouse today and again tomorrow, and the relationship begins to flourish. Why? Love accumulates. But here's the part most people miss. The law is neutral. It doesn't care whether your habits are good or bad. It doesn't reward good and punish bad out of emotion. It simply rewards what you repeatedly do. If you procrastinate today and again tomorrow, that accumulates. If you spend more money than you earn today and again tomorrow, that accumulates. If you show up late today and again tomorrow. That accumulates too. And that's the frightening part and the wonderful part. You are always, every day, adding to one side of the ledger or the other, and the law doesn't take days off. It doesn't give passes. It doesn't say, well, he meant well. No, intentions don't accumulate. Only actions do. And the moment you accept that truth, you become powerful, because then you understand that every small improvement, every small discipline, every small act of learning or saving or caring or practicing, all of it is stacking up, even when you don't see it, even when no one notices, even when it feels insignificant. That's the beauty of the law of accumulation. It's always working. The only question is it working for you or against you? Now that we understand the law of accumulation, let's take one more step into the heart of this idea. And this part, my friends, is crucial. If you miss this, you miss the whole point. Life, your life, my life, every life operates on what I call a simple ledger system, a system of deposits and debits. And here's the thing, the ledger is always running, always, whether you check it or not. Every action you take falls into one of those two categories. It either adds to your future or subtracts from it. It builds your character or erodes it. It strengthens your discipline or weakens your resolve. That's the truth. And the ledger, my friends, is brutally honest. It records exactly what you do, not what you intend to do, not what you hope to do, only what you actually do. Let's talk about deposits first. What counts as a deposit? A little study each day, that's a deposit. 10 pages of a good book, that's a deposit. A walk in the morning, a moment of gratitude. Showing up on time, keeping your word, being kind when you could have been impatient, planning your day instead of drifting through it. These things don't look dramatic. They don't make headlines, but they add up. They compound. They strengthen you quietly, steadily, faithfully. Now let's talk about debits. And this is where most people get into trouble, not because they make big mistakes, but because they make small mistakes repeatedly. Laziness is a debit. Gossip is a debit. Procrastination, that I'll do it tomorrow, voice, we've all heard it. That's a debit. Spending what you shouldn't spend, neglecting what you should care about. These actions don't destroy you in one day, but they erode you. One little chip at a time. Let me give you a simple truth you can write on a card and keep in your pocket. You never get away with anything. Oh, you might get away with it today, you might get away with it tomorrow, but the ledger doesn't forget. It never loses a number. And one day, the total shows up. It always shows up. And here's an interesting thing. Most people don't fail because of one major debit. Most people fail because of thousands of small ones, so small they didn't even notice them stacking up. One skipped workout, one broken promise, one wasted hour, one careless expense, one angry reaction, one moment of neglect, each one so tiny it feels harmless until the day the ledger speaks. Deposits and debits, that's the game of life. And once you start to see your daily actions through that lens, you become far more aware, far more intentional, far more disciplined, because you finally realize today matters. Every day matters. Every little thing counts. You are the accountant of your own potential. And the ledger, my friends, never sleeps. Now let's move into one of the great frustrations of human achievement, the invisible years. If you've ever tried to build a new habit, a new skill, a new business, or even a new mindset, you've met this stage. And let me tell you, my friends, this is where most people quit. Not because they can't do it, but because they can't see it. See? In the early days of any worthwhile pursuit, the results are invisible. You start studying, and you don't feel smarter yet. You start exercising, and you don't see muscles yet. You start saving money, and you don't feel wealthier yet. You start practicing kindness, and the world doesn't change overnight. And you say, Jim, where's the payoff? Where's the return on all this effort? But that's the nature of growth. The beginning always feels slow, quiet, unimpressive. Life gives no applause for day one, no trophies for day two, no parade for week 3, The soil looks the same the day after you plant the seed. Nothing seems to be happening. But something is happening, something marvelous beneath the surface. Let me give you the truth. Everything great grows in the dark before it grows in the light. A tree doesn't sprout the moment you plant it. A child doesn't become fluent in a language after one lesson. A career doesn't flourish after one good week of effort. The beginning is invisible because consistency works underground. And here's the tragedy. Most people quit right before the sprout breaks through the soil. They say it's not working. No, it is working. But the results are still underground, still taking shape, still gathering strength, still preparing for their first appearance. You want to know why consistency feels hard in the beginning? Because your life hasn't paid the interest yet. You're still in the planting season, and planting season is quiet. It's lonely. It's sometimes discouraging, but it's necessary. I've seen people put in 7 days of effort and quit because they don't see 7 years of results. I've seen people save a little money, read a little book, practice a little discipline, and then abandon it because it didn't instantly transform their life. They forget that seeds take time, that roots grow before branches, and that the beginning of everything looks like nothing. Let me give you a little phrase to remember. Consistency is slow at first, then sudden forever. That's the law. Slow to show, fast to grow, unstoppable once momentum kicks in. And I promise you, if you stay with it, if you keep watering the seed, if you keep making the deposits, even when you're not seeing results, the day will come when the sprout appears. When the results finally reveal themselves. When your efforts start working for you instead of against you. And that, my friends, is the moment most people miss because they quit during the invisible years. Now let's talk about something subtle, something sneaky, something that steals more dreams than failure ever will. I call them hidden debits. These aren't the big tragedies of life. These aren't the dramatic setbacks. No, these are the little losses, the ones that slip by unnoticed, the ones so small you barely feel them until one day you look up and they've drained your potential. You see, most people think it's the giant mistake that ruins them, the huge financial blunder, the major life crisis, the catastrophic decision, but that's not true. Most people recover from the big things. It's the little things repeated, the quiet, unexamined habits that do the real damage, because the ledger, my friends, doesn't just record your wins, it records your leaks. Let's look at a few of these leaks. Procrastination. It doesn't feel dramatic, does it? It's just a little delay, a harmless pause. You tell yourself, I'll do it tomorrow, but tomorrow becomes next week, next month, and before long, the backlog is so heavy you can't lift it. Every small delay is a debit, and those debits accumulate. Distraction. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, a little scrolling, a little wandering, a little noise in the background. Harmless, but the hours vanish. Your focus evaporates. You trade valuable time for meaningless moments. And the ledger writes it down. Neglect. Oh, this one is deadly. Not the neglect of some big responsibility. No, just the small neglects. Not making the call. Not following through. Not tending to relationships. Not taking care of your health. Not reviewing your goals. Neglect never announces itself. It just quietly chips away at you until the damage is undeniable. Excuses. This is the silent assassin of potential. The stories we tell ourselves about why we can't change, why the timing isn't right, why circumstances make it impossible. We treat these excuses as if they were harmless thoughts, but every one is a debit against our belief in ourselves. And once belief goes bankrupt, it's hard to get back on your feet. Let me give you a phrase to remember. It's not the mountain that wears you out, it's the pebble in your shoe. And most people never remove the pebble. They don't take inventory. They say it's just a small thing. But small things become lifestyles when you ignore them long enough. Another hidden debit is inconsistency itself. Not failing. Failing is fine. You can recover from failure. But drifting steals your direction. And direction, my friends, is everything. You don't need to move fast. You just need to move forward. Inch by inch is fine. But drifting backward, even 1 inch at a time, adds up. And remember, negative habits compound faster than positive ones if you let them. Why? Because they require no effort. Neglect doesn't need energy. Growth does. Laziness doesn't need planning. Discipline does. Comfort doesn't need commitment. Progress does. It's like gravity. If you don't push upward with intention, you automatically slide downward. That's the rule. That's the law. The question is, how many hidden debits are quietly pulling you down? How many tiny leaks are draining your energy, your confidence, your momentum? That's why awareness is so important. You must become a careful accountant of your own life. You must hunt for the leaks. You must shine light on the habits that hide in the shadows. Because what grows in darkness eventually takes control of your life. But here's the good news. Once you find these hidden debits, once you bring them out into the open, they lose their power. Awareness is the beginning of change. And in the next part, we're going to talk about the moment every life can pivot, the moment you finally look at the ledger and get honest with yourself. Now let's talk about a moment that every life must eventually face. A moment that separates the drifters from the growers, the wanderers from the builders, the wishers from the doers. I call it the turning point audit. And if you've never had one, my friends, you're overdue. What is the turning point audit? It's that quiet, powerful day when you finally sit down, just you and your life, and you take an honest look at the ledger, not the imaginary version of your life, not the hopeful version, not the someday I'll get around to it version. I mean the real ledger. What you've actually been doing, what you've actually been accumulating. And I'll tell you something, it usually doesn't happen on your best day. No, the turning point audit shows up on a night when you're tired of your own excuses. A morning when you realize your direction isn't matching your dreams, or in the middle of an ordinary day when something inside you finally says, enough, it's time to take a look. Most people avoid this moment. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. Because they're afraid of what they'll find. Because looking at the ledger means taking responsibility not for what life has done to you, but for what you've done with life. And that, my friends, requires courage. See, the world is full of emotional reasoning. I'm too tired. I'm too busy. I've always been this way. These are comforting stories. But when you put them on the ledger, they have no value. They are not assets. They are liabilities. A turning point audit strips away emotion and asks for facts. Let me show you the audit in its simplest form. 5 questions. What are my top 5 daily deposits? The habits that build me, strengthen me, move me forward. What are my top 5 daily debits? The behaviors that drain me, distract me, derail me. Where is the biggest leak? Not the whole ocean, just the biggest leak. One leak can sink a ship. Where is the easiest win? Not the hardest habit, just the simplest deposit you can start today. What direction has my daily accumulation created? Not your dream direction, your real direction. Most people are shocked the first time they do this. They discover they are rich in intentions, but poor in actions. Wealthy in wishes, but bankrupt in discipline. And the ledger shows it clearly. No emotion, no judgment, just the truth. But here's the wonderful part. That truth is not punishment, it's power. Because once you see where you genuinely are, you finally know where to go next. Clarity is a blessing. Awareness is liberation. The audit isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. Remember, the day you get honest with yourself is the day the tide begins to turn. You don't need permission to start over. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need motivation. You just need a decision, one decision to face the ledger with courage. One decision to stop overdrafting your potential. One decision to begin making deposits again, even if they're small. And when you commit to that, when you take that first honest step, your life shifts. Not dramatically, not instantly, but unmistakably. That is the beauty of the turning point audit. It doesn't make you perfect. It makes you aware. And awareness combined with action changes everything. Now that we've taken the audit, now that we've seen the truth of our own ledger, it's time for the next step. And this step, my friends, is where transformation actually begins. Not in grand resolutions, not in heroic promises, not in dramatic overhauls. No. Real change begins with something much simpler. Replace a debit with a deposit. See, most people try to improve their life in one giant leap. They try to fix everything, change everything, reinvent everything, and they end up overwhelmed, tired, discouraged. Because life doesn't change from sweeping overhauls. Life changes from small, deliberate substitutions. One habit exchanged for another. One behavior swapped for something better. That's how you build a new life quietly, piece by piece. Let me give you a key phrase. The fastest way to eliminate a bad habit is to crowd it out with a good one. You don't fight the debit. You replace it with a deposit. If you spend an hour scrolling at night, don't try to become a monk overnight. Just replace the first 20 minutes with reading. One substitution. If you find yourself gossiping at work, don't scold yourself into silence. Replace gossip with gratitude. Share something positive, something uplifting. A simple substitution. If you waste your mornings, don't try to wake up 3 hours earlier on day one. Start by planning your day the night before. A tiny deposit that begins shifting the ledger. Here's the truth. You don't need more willpower. You need better replacements. But let's talk about something even more important, your environment. Because habits do not grow in isolation. They grow in environments. And if your environment is full of triggers, temptations, noise, clutter, and chaos, your discipline won't stand a chance. If you want to save money, stop spending time where spending is easy. If you want to eat healthy, stock your home with healthy choices. If you want to study, create a space where distractions are removed. If you want to think clearly, clear the room where you think. Professional farmers don't blame the seed for failing. They check the soil. They check the environment. They check the conditions. You must do the same. If you want better habits, prepare better soil. Now let's add one more element association. This one can change your life faster than almost anything else. Your habits are shaped by the company you keep. If you spend time with people who complain, you'll start complaining. If you spend time with people who make excuses, you'll start making excuses. But if you associate with disciplined people, growing people, people who challenge you, people who build their own ledger with intention, your own deposits will increase almost automatically. Because remember, negativity is contagious, but so is excellence. Finally, let's talk about repetition. Habits are not created by intensity. They are created by repetition. Doing the right thing again and again and again until the groove is carved deep. At first, the path feels awkward, unfamiliar, but every time you make the deposit and resist the debit, you reinforce the new pattern. And before long, something wonderful happens. The very deposit that once felt difficult becomes automatic. You begin to crave the better choice. You begin to prefer the better path. That's when the habit transforms from something you do into something you are. And let me tell you, that's the moment you begin to turn your life from deficit to surplus. Because change doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. And consistency, my friends, comes from making the right deposit one day at a time. Now, my friends, once you start replacing debits with deposits, once the small disciplines begin taking root, something remarkable happens. And this is one of the most beautiful experiences in personal development. I call it the momentum curve. This is when your consistency, once slow and difficult, begins to lift you instead of you lifting it. When you no longer have to push the habit because the habit begins to push you. Let me explain how this works. At first, discipline is heavy. It takes effort to get up earlier. It takes effort to read the book. It takes effort to practice gratitude. It takes effort to save money. Everything new feels awkward. Everything new feels unnatural. But that is simply the beginning of the curve. You're fighting against your past patterns. You're building new grooves. But if you stay with it day after day, deposit after deposit, the curve changes, slowly at first, then suddenly, and one day you wake up and discover something extraordinary. The habit isn't hard anymore. You're not fighting yourself anymore. The deposit that once felt like a burden now feels like a privilege. The good choice becomes the easy choice. That, my friends, is momentum. And momentum is powerful. It makes ordinary people appear extraordinary. It makes small disciplines create big results. It makes consistency feel effortless. See, you don't have to be superhuman to be consistent. You just need enough repetition to cross the tipping point. Let me give you a few examples. The first time you read 10 pages, it feels like work. But after 50 days, it's harder not to read. The first time you take a walk, you have to convince yourself. But after 30 days, your body asks for it. The first time you save money, it feels like sacrifice. But after 6 months, it feels like wisdom. Momentum transforms discipline into identity. And here's the secret. Momentum builds faster than you think, but only after it builds slower than you want. That's the paradox. Slow, steady, deposits, then rapid results. There's another part of momentum I want you to catch. Once it begins, opportunities start finding you. It's not mystical, it's logical. People trust those who are consistent. Leaders notice consistent performers. Clients rely on consistent businesses. Families blossom under consistent love. Health elevates under consistent care. Money grows under consistent saving. Knowledge compounds under consistent study. Life rewards the consistent because consistency builds credibility first with others, but more importantly, with yourself. Momentum also protects you. When momentum is high, it becomes harder to fall back into old habits. The ledger is stacked with deposits. The balance is strong. The habits are ingrained. The character is fortified. You become more resilient, more confident, more stable. But remember this as well. Momentum can work in the opposite direction. Neglect can gain momentum too. Procrastination can gain momentum. Laziness can gain momentum. One missed day becomes two. Two becomes four. And soon the negative habits begin carrying you downward. That's why awareness is crucial. You must never let your negative momentum grow. Cut it off early. Interrupt it quickly. Replace it immediately. But when it's positive momentum, oh, my friends, protect it like treasure. Because once your life starts moving in the right direction, once the compounding takes hold, once the habits begin carrying you forward, your entire world changes. Effort becomes enjoyment, discipline becomes identity, and consistency becomes self-fueling. When you cross that threshold, you become unstoppable. Now, let's travel a little deeper, because while the momentum curve changes your habits, there is something even more profound that the law of accumulation touches. Something far beyond your goals, your money, your health, or your productivity. It begins working in the most important territory of all your character. Most people think the compound effect applies only to achievements. If I save consistently, my money grows. True. If I study consistently, my skills grow. Also true. But those are only the surface level rewards. The real treasure, the rarest form of wealth, is what consistency builds inside of you. Let me tell you what I've learned. Your habits don't just shape your results. They shape you. Every time you keep your promise, you become more trustworthy. Every time you practice patience, you become more composed. Every time you choose discipline, you become stronger inside. Every time you express gratitude, you become more abundant. Every time you do what you said you would do, you build a reputation not just with others, but with yourself. That, my friends, is character. And character, just like money, accumulates. Let's talk about kindness for a moment. A small act of kindness feels tiny. You don't see it in the mirror. Nobody sends you a report at the end of the day telling you how much goodwill you gained. But kindness compounds. You become easier to be around, easier to trust, easier to love. And life has a way of rewarding those who spread deposits of goodwill. Then there's gratitude. One thank you, one thoughtful moment, one quiet appreciation. It doesn't feel like much. But gratitude shapes your worldview. Gratitude compounds into optimism, into resilience, into emotional stability. A grateful person can endure storms that would destroy someone who only sees what's missing. And what about integrity? A little honesty today, a little honesty tomorrow, choosing the truth when the lie would be easier, choosing responsibility when the excuse is available. These small decisions carve out a character people can rely on. Integrity attracts opportunities you could never force. And it starts with tiny, consistent choices. Let's not forget courage. You don't become brave in one moment. You become brave from 1,000 small acts of courage, speaking up when it's uncomfortable, trying when you're unsure, showing up when you're afraid, persevering when you'd rather quit. Courage accumulates until you become the kind of person who faces life head on. And of course, wisdom. Wisdom is not delivered in a lightning bolt. Wisdom comes from small reflections, small lessons, small corrections accumulated over time. You read 10 pages a day, think for 5 minutes a day, journal a few lines a day, and one day you wake up wiser than you ever expected. Wisdom, too, is an account you build. Let me give you another principle worth writing down. The richest life isn't the one with the biggest bank account, it's the one with the strongest character account. Money can vanish, titles can change, achievements fade, but who you become that's wealth that cannot be stolen, that's the real surplus. The surplus that shows up in your relationships, your decisions, your peace of mind, your confidence, your contribution. And here's the beauty. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be extraordinary. You only need to make small deposits in the areas that matter day after day. Because the compound effect works just as powerfully in your character as it does in your achievements. One kind word a day. One act of discipline a day. One moment of gratitude a day. One small correction a day. One promise kept a day. These are the deposits that build a life of depth, strength, and meaning. My friends, your achievements will impress people, but your character will inspire them.